right? And if you told a joke and it bombed, you just stood there like a dummy, like that, you know what I mean? You know the feeling.
Milton Berle was television's very first superstar, a man whose face and name once seemed impossible to escape. In 1948, his weekly show was so popular that crime rates dropped on Tuesday nights, restaurants closed early, and stores sold out of TVS just so people could watch him. At his peak, an astonishing 80% of America tuned in. He wasn't just a comedian, he was Mr. Television, the man who proved that one performer could carry an entire industry. And yet, when he died in 2000 from cancer, his passing barely registered. In Hollywood, the same entertainment world he had helped build had long since forgotten him. His own adopted son would later publish a scathing memoir, calling him a monster. And the last time he made national headlines, it was for groping RuPaul on live TV. The man once known as Uncle Miltie ended his life without the applause that had defined him for decades. Milton's path to fame began not with his own dreams, but with those of his mother, Sarah Berlinger. Later calling herself Sandra Berle to ride her son's fame, she was a relentless stage mother who stopped at nothing to push Milton into the spotlight when her own parents discouraged her from pursuing show business. She decided her son would live that dream for her. She abandoned her husband and other children to focus entirely on Milton's career. If he showed a hint of comedic talent, she would loudly laugh from the audience to help him win over the crowd. She pushed him onto stages without permission, risking arrest just to get him noticed. She even changed her own name to match his, a symbolic act that made her ambitions clear. But this all-consuming attention came at a cost. Milton's siblings were neglected, his father was sidelined, and Milton was burdened with the weight of his mother's unfulfilled ambitions. Years later, he would say that Sarah made Gypsy Rose Lee's famously controlling mother look like Mary Poppins. By age 5, Milton was already working in silent films, making his debut in The Perils of Pauline in 1914. While other children played in parks, Milton was in front of cameras, appearing in over 50 silent films before turning 8, including Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm and The Mark of Zorro, with stars like Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks. His childhood disappeared almost overnight. By his teens, he was a seasoned performer on vaudeville stages, supporting his entire family after his father became ill and couldn't work. The pressure on him was enormous, and the entertainment world of the time offered no safety net for young talent. At just 12 years old, Milton's life took a darker turn when he claimed to have lost his virginity to an adult coarse girl. The vaudeville circuit was a rough environment for children, filled with late nights, adult humor, and situations no child should have been exposed to. Even though his mother hovered constantly, Milton was thrust into a world far beyond his years. That early experience shaped his views on relationships for the rest of his life, and not in a healthy way. Sarah's control extended beyond his career and into his personal life. If he dated a woman more than 3 times, she would find a way to break it off. This suffocating interference left Milton desperate to prove he wasn't a mama's boy, chasing women endlessly yet never truly escaping his need for her approval. School was little more than a side note in Milton's life. He attended the Professional Children's School in New York, a place designed for young performers to get just enough education to keep working. He grew up surrounded by other child stars, living in a bubble of competition and applause. His world revolved around audiences, not classrooms, and he would later admit that he felt disconnected from normal people his entire life. Milton also developed a notorious reputation for stealing jokes. In the competitive vaudeville scene, a good joke could sustain a performer for years. But Milton was so shameless about borrowing material that he was nicknamed the Thief of Bad Gags. Bob Hope even joked that he liked watching Berle on TV just to see how his own jokes were doing. Instead of hurting him, this notoriety only added to his fame. By 1929, at just 21 years old, Milton was headlining major theaters and performing 6 shows a day. His mother's relentless drive and his own stage presence made him one of the most famous comics in New York. he appeared in the Ziegfeld Follies, once performing an exhausting 553 shows in a single run. Long before it was socially acceptable, Milton incorporated drag into his comedy, performing over-the-top impersonations of stars like Carmen Miranda. In the 1920s and 30s, cross-dressing on stage could get you arrested, but Milton did it anyway, turning it into a signature bit that even landed him on the cover of Newsweek. By the time Texaco Star Theater premiered on June 8, 1948, his drag acts had become so famous that crime rates actually dropped during the show's airtime because the entire country was watching him. Radio, however, had not been as kind to him. Throughout the 1930s and 40s, Milton's radio ventures flopped one after another, including 3 Ring Time and Kiss and Makeup. His humor needed a live audience and visual gags, the very things radio couldn't provide, but television was different. From the moment he stepped onto the Texaco Star Theater stage in 1948, he electrified the medium. The variety format, mixing vaudeville acts, sketches, music, and live commercials, was a perfect showcase for his energy. At first, NBC wasn't sure he was the right fit, testing other hosts before finally giving him the permanent job in September 1948. From then on, he was Mr. Television. Milton's popularity drove TV sales through the roof. In 1948, there were only about 500,000 television sets in the US. By the end of 1949, there were more than 2 million. Stores actually ran out of TVS after his Tuesday night broadcasts, a phenomenon dubbed the Berle effect. By the time he stepped down in 1956, over 30 million American homes owned his set. His reach was so vast that he could alter national routines. Movie theaters shut down on Tuesday nights, restaurants closed early, and even water usage in cities like Detroit dropped during commercial breaks. His influence went beyond comedy. When Texaco tried to block the First Step Brothers, a black dance group, from appearing on the show, Milton refused to perform unless they were allowed on. Just minutes before airtime, the network caved, and the group went on, breaking a racial barrier in variety television. But fame at that level has a short shelf life. By the mid-1950s, tastes were changing. I Love Lucy and The Honeymooners drew audiences with warm, family-oriented humor that made Milton's brash, city slicker style feel dated. His ratings collapsed from 80% of the TV audience to 13th place. In just a couple of years, Texaco pulled its sponsorship, and NBC scrambled to use him in any format they could, from game shows to oddities like Jackpot Bowling. Overexposure and an unwillingness to adapt sealed his fate. Milton Berle became the first major victim of television burnout. His personal life was just as turbulent. He married showgirl Joyce Matthews in 1941, but his mother's interference quickly destroyed the relationship. They divorced in 1947, remarried in 1949, and divorced again a year later, with Matthews' attempted suicide amid the drama making headlines. Milton's affairs became legendary, with names ranging from Marilyn Monroe to Evangelist Amy Semple McPherson, though many of these claims were likely exaggerated to bolster his image as a ladies' man. In 1953, he married publicist Ruth Cosgrove, and the marriage lasted until her death in 1989. But even then, the emotional scars from his mother's control lingered. One of the most damaging revelations of his later life came when it was revealed that he had fathered a son, Bob Williams, in 1951 with showgirl Junior Standish, while publicly insisting he only had adopted children. The truth didn't emerge until the late 80s, adding another layer of secrecy and dysfunction to his personal history. His professional decline hit an embarrassing low in 1979 when he hosted Saturday Night Live, ignoring the writer's scripts. He filled his monologue with racist and homophobic jokes, mugged for the camera, and even planted friends in the balcony for a fake standing ovation. Lorne Michaels was so disgusted that he banned Berle from the show for life, a rare dishonor that cemented his reputation as a star who couldn't evolve. In 1999, his adopted son, William, published a memoir titled My Father, Uncle Miltie, portraying Him as a vain, neglectful father more concerned with women and gambling than family. William claimed that when he was 16, Milton paid for a prostitute to take his virginity, an act meant to pass as bonding, but which William saw as deeply disturbing. Milton never spoke to him again after the book's release. By April 2001, Milton was diagnosed with colon cancer. Doctors told him it was so slow-growing it might not seriously affect him for another decade, so he refused surgery. But the disease moved quickly, and within a year, on March 27, 2002, Milton Berle was gone at 93. In a twist of fate, actors Dudley Moore and Billy Wilder died the same day, burying news of Berle's death beneath theirs. The man who had once dominated the national stage couldn't even command his final headline. His funeral on April 1, 2002, drew nearly 300 people, including legends like Don Rickles, Sid Caesar, and Red Buttons. His coffin was draped with his trench coat and hat, a nod to his famous fear of catching cold. Friends told stories, people laughed, and for a moment, the old Uncle Miltie charm returned. But his life's arc, from the man who brought television into America's living rooms to a largely forgotten figure, remains a cautionary tale. Fame can build you up, but it never promises to stay.